Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, my friends. Today we're talking about fighting games. Yeah, it's sort of a thing we do every now and then. And we're going to be talking about some fighting game moves that just straight up don't make sense. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of fantastical moves in fighting games that, make sense within the context of their universe or their game. Maybe they can be a bit silly one way or another, or perhaps even just be outright magical. And that's perfectly great, right? Like, that's part of the attraction of fighting games, is these larger-than-life moves from these larger-than-life characters. We do not need fighting games to be like real life. If fighting games were like real life, then no one would be able to beat E Honda because he's obviously the strongest. So in this video, we're going to be talking about some fighting game moves that are just kind of nonsensical, not because they're too fantastical, but because they don't really make much sense within the game rules themselves. The genre, while each game is its own game, has a bunch of rule sets that are pretty consistent game to game, like fundamental base concepts. So what happens when your eyes don't reconcile with what the game's telling you? So the inspiration for this video actually sort of comes from this tweet here, asking if there's any contenders for worse designed overhead than Warwick in the past 20 years of non-Kusoge fighting games. And if you don't know the term Kusoge, it means fighting game we all wish was a little bit better. And to directly speak on, if you don't know Warwick overhead, it's difficult to see. The startup initially has gigantic range, and it can just lead into like follow-ups and combos like in and of itself. It's pretty annoying, I'm not gonna lie, but even within, especially the last 20 years, is easily beaten. Like, say, Street Fighter 4 Dudley has a 15-frame, unseeable overhead, completely safe on block. I think it's only -1. And in a game where you're not supposed to get combos off of overheads, he could get pretty good combos off his unseeable, safe overhead. Or something even stupider, like the glory days of Injustice 1. Doomsday has a move that's an overhead, and it's also a low. So you have to block pretty much unseeable overhead immediately, and then immediately block the low as well. And back in the days before rollback netcode, you could know this was coming, and with delay-based online, which wasn't that good, you could still have a lot of difficulty blocking it, even if you knew it was coming. So yeah, Warwick definitely not the worst in last modern history. But it's not even just so much that tweet itself. It was one of the follow-up tweets I read that made me say, oh, okay, let's get stupid with it. Because I saw an old school Testament move and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what we should talk about. And that's what we are going to talk about in the video. Fighting game moves that make absolute no visual sense. So in the land of Guilty Gear, there is a universal mechanic called the dust attack. And dust attacks are overheads. So that means you have to block these moves standing, as opposed to say like a low that you would be blocking crouching, right? And the telltale thing of a dust is the fact that it has the gigantic orange glow. Like maybe the animation is not always in step with the fact that you have to stand up to block. Like in Guilty Gear, most of them look like mids that you can block standing or crouching, right? And some are a little deceptive because they start going low, going up. But the orange flash is the dead giveaway. If you see the orange flash, stand block no matter what the animation itself tells you. Sure. And say you go back into older games in the franchise, it's kind of hold true. You'll see some sort of orange flash, just let you know, hey, probably should stand block this one. That said, though, when you start getting into like the really older franchises of the games, those rules do not apply anymore. So now, again here, back to Testament, that dust attack that was mentioned. So Testament lowers to the ground, the attack rises from the ground reaching upwards, and yet when they are blocking attacks, if they're crouch blocking, this move that screams low, or at least mid, that's an overhead that has to be stand blocked. So if you're looking for visual misinformation, this is a classic all-timer, because none of this makes sense visually that you have to stand block this move. And even in this game, this is not the worst case example. How about we go to Justice, who's one of the bosses of the older Guilty Gear games. So Justice's dust attack, she goes like backwards onto the ground, and then like even more vivid, like spikes coming up from the ground. Like the tell is a lot more obvious. Okay, this attack emerges from the ground. then yo, a bare minimum, if it's not a mid, like crouch block, like do something, right? But definitely don't stand block it. And yet, stand block is exactly what you have to do. Despite everything this move screams at you visually, this move is not a low or a mid. This is an overhead that you must stand block. So now that you sort of know what you're in for here with the video, right? Let's go to another very egregious example, to King of Fighters land. So we have Yashiro, everyone's favorite gorilla. And Yashiro, his close D, his close heavy kick. Well, he's got a kick that sort of kicks at your legs. And fairly enough, you would assume, okay, either it's a mid or it's a low. And yes, it's a low. At least in modern revisions of the King of Fighters. Because in older games, it might not match your expectations. Now, let's say wind the clock back to the King of Fighters 97. This is where Yashiro and Chris and Shermie all make their debut. And, you know, he has a lot of the same moves that he's famous for in his other appearances, including that kick we just showed here, the close heavy kick. And there's a pretty big difference here because now it's an overhead. Yes, is he kicking at your legs? Visually, sure. But now if you try to crouch block, once again, this is an overhead, so you get hit. So it's very visually confusing to say the least. But this is another attack that obviously targets low that you'd be very confused if you blocked and got hit anyways. Now, don't confuse this for like obscure older games. Like even something relatively popular like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 has the same kind of nonsense. Like Beautiful Joe, great guy, we love Joe around here, right? Is forward medium, which is kind of just like a quick knuckle. You better believe this is an overhead. Is there any visual tell this quick punch, which like would look like a light attack in any other game, right? That's an overhead? Nope, but you better believe if they're crouching, you gotta stand block this bad boy. So what's the visual tell here? What's the logic on the design? Well, it's not there and there is none, to be frank, right? And that's why it's in the video. But even Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is, like, in the grand scheme of things, an older game, right? So let's try an actual very current, very modern game. Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. Let's talk about Salvatore Ganacci. And if you don't know about Salvatore, well, he's a bit of an odd duck, right? And he's got a command stance. From that, he has a lot of sonic attacks, I guess you would call them. And some of them do make sense. Like stance forward heavy punch. He attacks you from a like downwards, like upwards to down angle. And yes, that looks like an overhead. And that is an overhead. Fantastic. Okay, we're finally on message here. Except same stance, forward light kick, where he literally lowers himself down to the ground and yells upwards. This is also an overhead. What? Like the one, sure, visually makes sense. The other couldn't be further from you understanding that you have to stand block this. And yet, hey, here we are. Like at least he has some moves that make sense, like stance run is a low. Like at least that's not an overhead. But you can see this is a common occurrence in fighting games. Now let's keep it weird. So now we're in the land of Under Night in Birth. And this is specifically the first game, not Under Night in Birth 2, because thankfully they smartly fixed it in the latest revision of the game. But let's look at Byakuya. And here's a move for you. So down, forward, heavy attack, C. Okay. And there's also a charge version. So, okay, is the charge version the overhead? You know, that's like Guilty Gear we saw earlier with the charge stuff, right? Well, yeah, okay. It is the overhead. You're right. You got it. Great. So what's about the non-charge version? Oh, that's a low. What? So yeah, this one here where he's attacking straight up into the air. Just as high as you can go. That's a low. The part where he holds it and charges it, that's an overhead. So quick is a low, charge is an overhead that has to be stand blocked. Obviously very visually difficult, right? Because it's basically the same move, just one is charged, one is not. So in later revisions, it was changed a little bit. So one of them was a mid at least, but yeah, confusing to say the least. Not the least of which there was multiple levels of charge. You didn't have to hold it all the way. You could like partially hold it, then let it rock. and partially I hold it and let it rock to the charge. Like, so people could see the startup and then react one way or the other. And like, oh, I see a startup, and then nope, you reacted to the startup, that's still a low. And like, silly. Now, let's move on to the land of Darkstalkers, and specifically Darkstalkers 1, not the much more famous vampire savior. And so we got our buddy Rico here, and I know the first thing you're thinking is, well, he is a little curiously attractive, and fair enough, right? That's kind of his deal. But we got a real egregious move here, and that is his crouching heavy punch. So he's got big old lobster arms, and he's very clearly aiming for your feet. Like, I don't think that could be argued in any way, right? And you better believe, is it an overhead? Yepper, this is an overhead. So if the opponent is crouch blocking, his crouching heavy punch will hit them, and that's it. This is an overhead. It goes against all logic that this such an obvious low-coded move is an overhead. And the story goes, it was like literally they ticked the box wrong. Like, it was not intentionally meant to be an overhead, but this move is an overhead. Now, this is one they did have fun with it in later revisions of the game, speaking of Vampire Savior. So here we are in Vampire Savior, the third game in the Darkstalkers franchise. And here, Crouch Heavy Punch, you can see the animation is actually slightly different. And this is just a mid. So you can block it standing or crouching, it does not particularly matter. But he does have a special homage to that overhead Crouch Heavy Punch from the first Darkstalkers. So he has a 3-bar super move, which is down, all 3 punches. And then he'll glow and do that original animation from Darkstalkers 1. And this move is, like its predecessor, a true overhead that has to be stand blocked. And what does it do if it hits? Well, it just does it. That's it. It's a complete waste of bar. It's meant to be an homage to the old glitch from Darkstalkers 1. That's it. That's all. That's why it caused 3 bars. In fact, you can only even do it with the colors he had in the original Darkstalkers. If he had a color that was not in the original game, then you could not do this super move. It's even color locked on top of just being locked behind the meter. Rest assured, when it comes to spending meter in the game, he has a lot better uses of his meter than this little silly Easter egg. But the fact that, you know, years later they brought it back like, whoopsie, our bad, but we'll make something fun of it, I think that's pretty cool. So that is some of the stranger moves in fighting games throughout the years. Obviously, when it comes to forethought in the design, maybe they could have planned it out a little bit more, but, well, that's why it's kind of fun now, isn't it? If everything worked to our expectations, there wouldn't be much to talk about now, would there? But that said, I am sure I have probably missed more than a few moves that are just oddly visually coded over the years, and by all means, whatever I have not posted in the video, please post in the comments below so people can just know what's up. But that said, my friends, that is it for me, and that's it for the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.